Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Let me just getting things set up here. We got Wake Up and Dial Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. Guys, Wednesday, right before Christmas. I got my ugly Christmas sweater on. We got it's like a Jack Frost. He's got like hands coming out here. It definitely meets the ugly part. We've accomplished that. So today I'm waiting to see who hops in with us. I know I was speaking with a gentleman yesterday who had a property. They just got under contract in Michigan, and he had reached out. And he said, "Hey, can you? I've got this property. I've got it under contract. Can you help me sell it? Can we JV on it?" And there's a lot of unique things with this property. Um, and then we were chatting a little bit back and forth. And so primarily he does cold calling for his lead generation. And he was asking, he was like, "Hey, can I actually, could you help me out a little bit with kind of that cold calling process? How do you do it? What does that look like? What's the best way to go about it?" And so I know he wasn't 100% sure if he was going to be able to join me or not. I'm just checking things here on my end. Um, but uh, but that's what he wanted to go over. So today we're going to primarily go over cold calling. What does that look like? What does it sound like? If you guys are like, "Hey, I don't do cold calling, Nate. Um, when do I sleep, bro? I don't. I sleep. No, it's not true. I go to sleep pretty early. Sleep at go to bed at like 9, and then get up at 3:45. So early to bed, early to rise. So cold calling, guys, if you're like, "Hey, Nate, I don't do cold calling." What is like there gonna be anything in here that I can use? Yes. One thing you guys will hear me kind of harp on is um there's fundamental principles that apply to any conversation that you have, right? So whether we're talking about inbound leads, an already generated lead, you're doing the cold calling, or if we're talking about having a conversation with your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, kids, the principles we talk about, it's not so much sales and negotiating, it's really effectively communicating, right? Because what we do is we don't convince people of trying to do something that they don't want to do. No, what we're really doing, what we're trying to become masters of, is uncovering truth and everything that they're feeling. All right, let's see. Someone's looking to join in here. We got Joe. Hey, Joe. Good morning. How you doing? Yeah, cool, man. I appreciate you hopping on. I don't know if you caught the beginning. Today we're going to be talking about cold calling. I just spoke with a guy yesterday who kind of brought us a property he just got under contract, and he's looking help to JV with it. Um, and he primarily does cold calling. He's like, "Hey, he said he wasn't sure if he was going to be able to hop on or not, but he uh he was like, "What does that process kind of look like? Can you help me out with it?" And all right, here we got Henry hopping in. Let me share my screen. And let me share screen. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But for the people that are like, "Hey man, I don't I do mostly agent outreach, or I don't do cold calling, I do text, or I do mail, or whatever, or like I really look to network with wholesalers." Listen to kind of all the variations, when I'm talking about cold calling, when I'm talking about inbound leads, or talking to already generated leads. There's fundamental principles that apply to all of them, right? And so when you start to understand the principles of mastering like how to effectively communicate with people, man, that's when the whole game changes for you. So there's definitely going to be some nuggets, Joe, Henry, that you guys are going to be able to take away from today and everyone else watching. So let's hop into it. Oh, we got Tamika looking to come in. Hey, Tamika. How's it going, guys? Good morning, everybody. I've got my ugly Christmas sweater on for those of you that can see. So, all right, cold calling. Let's hop into it. So, what does that look like? So, this is usually one of them people like, oh my gosh, like, I don't, man. It's people are always mad when you like we're interrupting their day. And how do we handle these conversations? It's a really tough one to get up and just start dialing. But when you do it the right way, huge difference in the response that you get from people, right? What's the difference between me getting, cursed out by someone and just getting oh, hey, appreciate your time. Hey, I appreciate your time, but yeah, this isn't the right fit for me right now. Two drastically different responses. They're both a no, but one, when you get that softer no, you're like, okay, I can keep on going and keep doing this call, and they're just not the right person, right? Versus when you get cursed out by someone, it's like, man, I don't want to do it today, right? Like, I want to get off the phone. So one of the things, and we're gonna go deep here, right, on these cold calls, like I'm gonna show you kind of line by line how I go about it, and then any questions that you guys have, feel free to ask, and we can go into it. Very first thing when you're calling, when they pick up the phone, let's say you have a dialer or you have the owner information in front of you, whatever the owner name is of that property, that's what we start with. So if it says the seller or the homeowner's name is John, when they pick up the phone, like, hello, hey, John, upward inflection, right? Upward tone, and we're assuming it's their first name. The reason we do that is your tonality is everything, especially for the opening cold call. I saw a raised hand here. We'll get to that in just one second. The tonality is everything, right? That is our primary. It's not the words that we say, especially when we're on the phone. You guys may have heard body language is the number one factor that we use to determine the meaning of communication when someone's talking to us, right? When we figure out like, hey, what are they really saying? What do they mean? We take their body language, and that's how we really communicate it. It's not the words are really just a small percentage. Well, when we're just talking on the phone, so number one is body language, number two is tonality, and number three is the words you're actually saying, right? So a ridiculous example is if you go to someone, hey, I really enjoyed this restaurant, not an amazing meal, right? You're like, wait, what? Like what what is I'm like, you're confused as to like, what is this person saying? What's going on, right? So when we're on the phone with someone, it's just we're taking away that body language part, so we don't have that. So the most important thing now becomes our tonality. And when you're speaking, I'm unfortunate. I have a standing desk here, but the energy, and even when you're speaking to people, use body language as if you're in front of them, because that comes out naturally through your tonality when you're talking with them. So when I say, hey, John, lighthearted, that's what we call a playful tone. So Chris Voss, he talks, there's 3 or 4 different tones, but he calls it the playful tone. He's like 80 to 90% of your time should really just be using this tone. Lighthearted, friendly, playful tone. Someone had raised their hand. You can just unmute yourself and ask if you had a question, or if there's something you wanted me to explain a little bit better. If not, that's all right. We'll hop back in. If something pops up, if you have a question, you can also throw it in the chat too, or just you can unmute yourself and ask. So we call, person answers, hello, hey, John. Now there's two ways. Well, like, well, what if it's not John? So what if the person's like, no, this isn't. No, I think you got the wrong number. Immediately we go to, God, I'm so sorry about that. I might have the wrong number, but I'm actually looking for the owners of 123 Main Street. How much would 10 cold callers cost a month? Well, it's funny because I've previously had 10 cold callers a month, and it depends where you go. So Wazoo are the people that sponsor this call. That's who we use for our cold callers. I believe it's so everyone can be different on who you use. A lot depends on their setup. So like I've used previous companies to where it was like 650 an hour, and it was a minimum of every caller needed to be Monday through Friday and a minimum 9 hours per day, and times that by 30 days a month, and then times 10 cold callers. I do not recommend, do not, if you have some money, or if like you're just getting started, I do not recommend like, let me hire 10 cold callers and like figure it out with all the like, because that's a quick way. I mean, if you have a massive budget and you don't mind burning money, that's one thing. But if you like, start with profit, right? Start with being profitable. Getting a little bit off track, but let's reel it back in. So Cole, I don't know if that answers your question. If you have a further question, you can just ask. But typically, I believe Wazoo is also 650 an hour. I don't know about if they have requirements as far as how many hours and whatnot. But that's kind of like an industry standard. Some cost a bit more. You might find some that are like maybe $1 less an hour. But they're usually right around like 650 an hour per caller, and then a minimum 8 to 9 hours per day is typically what it costs. So hey, John, no, this isn't John. Like, I think you got the wrong number. Then we respond with, have that, one of the biggest things is we want to be genuine in our tone, because the number one roadblock when they answer the phone is their brain is trying to figure out, like, is this just another sales call? Is this someone just trying to pitch me on something? Like, is this a telemarketer? If it is, I just want to get off the phone as quick as possible. So we have to do everything to try to separate ourselves and take them out of that immediate response of like, oh, just telemarketer, like click, hang up. Right. So we're trying to in the very beginning of your cold call, like you're fighting for each second. And the way we can do that is just sounding like a genuine, conversation with someone, right? So when they're like, no, this isn't John, I'm like, John, I'm so sorry, man. I might have the wrong number here. But I was actually looking for the owners of 123 Main Street. Oh, right. And a lot of times you'll get, oh, that's my dad's property, right? Or that's my brother, that's my sister, and it's a family member. A lot of times you'll actually get that, and then you can continue that conversation. And again, we're being genuine. I'm just like that's my dad's house. Can I help you? I'm so sorry. I don't know. It must got the numbers mixed up here. I was actually looking to reach out to him about his house there. Nothing's wrong. But I just wanted to reach out and see if he was considering selling it by any chance. Right. And then we're pretty much negotiating with them to, hey, can you give me your dad's number, or can you connect me with him or that other person, that other family member? Right. So, hey, John, if they respond with, yeah, this is John. Who's this? Hey, John, this is Nathan. How you doing? Pause. I'm doing well. Who's this? Can I help you? Yeah, John. I know I'm calling you a little bit out of the blue here, but I was actually calling about a property I believe you own on 123 Main Street. Pause. Yeah. What about it? Well, again, I know I'm kind of calling you completely out of the blue here, but I was actually reaching out to see if you'd consider an offer on your property there, right? Or you can phrase it, I was actually reaching out to see if you're considering selling it, right? Either one of those two. Now, the key is the pause. This is such a vital tool in any conversation with anyone about anything, whether it's your kids, a spouse, if you're the closer, guys. One of the biggest tools, and it's the simplest one, is being able to just pause and hold silence, and knowing when to do that. Because especially when we're on the phone, those empty spaces are incredibly uncomfortable for just about everyone. Like people don't like those pauses. They don't so they fill it with words and they start talking. We're trying to get as much information as possible, right? And it's hilarious, guys. Like go use it today when you talk with someone about anything, right? Just pause, and you're gonna feel a cringe of like, oh, this is awkward, and just keep waiting, and they will respond with something, and it's hilarious, right? And it's how you kind of are able to navigate them in the direction that you want to go. So pausing is so huge. I cannot stress that enough. It is so simple, and it takes practice. It's going to feel so awkward at first when you first start implementing this, but then over time, it's like you understand and you know when you're using it, and then it's actually kind of hilarious because you can feel like, oh yeah, this person feels awkward, in this one moment, and then they start talking, right? Same thing with like when you give an offer, we pause. Hey John, so again, this is going to be a cash offer, no closing fees, blah 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 blah. With that being said, we were able to pay. We were able to come up to $123,419. Pause. Like I have literally looked at the clock. I'm again, on the dialer when talking. I've paused for literally 2 minutes straight, incredibly long time, and just wait for them to respond. Um, if there's one thing you take from today, guys, take that, go use it. You'll be surprised how far you can get with just that simple tool. So what we're looking to do is the beginning of this the cold call, these conversations, we're not looking to. I don't agree with. So I have a script here. This is not my script. This is a very popular script that's put out there. Um, and and I see this with a lot of scripts to where, especially for cold calling, they're like, hey, is this the owner of 123 Main Street? I was calling about your property there. Wanted to see if you'd consider an offer. And then they jump straight to, great. Let me ask you a couple about, couple questions about the condition of the property. Great. What's the lowest you would take for it? If you're doing that, in like I mean, these scripts, it's like that's a 5-minute conversation. You should not be jumping into an offer, a conversation, like at any point in time. The whole cold call, the first conversation is strictly break the ice and build a rapport, right? And we're just trying to figure out, is this remotely a lead or not? That is all. We are not, like, your goal when you're cold calling should not be to make an offer. And when you make that shift in that conversation, you'll start having so much more success. Because what happens is every other wholesaler out there, they're cold calling and they're giving them an offer in 5-10 minutes. In 5 to 10 minutes, that person still has all their smoke screens up and all their guards, and they're going to give you some artificially high number, right? They're not giving you their real number, their real motivation, because it's not enough time to connect with that person, build rapport, and fully understand what they're doing, and what they really need, right? And the other thing is, it's not enough time to genuinely care about the person you're talking to and figure out, like, is this the best option for them? Now, I'd say the only kind of exceptions to this rule are sometimes you'll get an insanely hot lead, right? Like if it's a lead, they're like, yeah, my house is going to foreclosure tomorrow. That's an exception to the rule, right? Or something to where they're like, the motivation is like, 15 out of 10, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, please help me. Like I need this right this second. That's different, right? And you'll be able to pick up on that the second when you're talking to those people. Those leads are great, but 80% of them are going to be like on the fence, kind of have a wall up, some resistance towards you. And so what we're doing is we're really just looking to connect with them and break through that barrier so that we can then have a real conversation about the property and really ask questions about, hey, what's going on, and figure out what can we really do to help this person out. So typically I don't even go into, I almost like to make it a totally separate call. When I first reach out, so it's, hey, John. Yeah, this is John. Hey, John, it's Nathan. How you doing? Guys, when you start with how are you doing, that's a real conversation, right? You sound like a real person. You don't want to sound like a telemarketer. You don't want to sound like you have a sales pitch. That's why personally, I also don't agree with, some people teach, well, you should announce who you are immediately on the first line. If I call you guys, think about, don't listen to me, take it for your own experience. If you were to get a call right now from an unknown number and you answer it and you're like, hello, and the person's like, hey, this is Nathan from I-84 Home Buyers. How are you doing? Immediately, right? Like even just saying it, do you feel that kind of shift of like, oh my gosh, right? We don't want to start off with that. We want to start, we want to almost make them curious about, who is this? What is this call about? Like, why do you sound like someone that's known me for 20 years and I can't remember your name? That's kind of what we're going for. And you'll get so much further in your conversations and you'll be able to connect with people, right? And especially when you're able to be lighthearted in your tone, you get so much of a better response. You're not getting cursed out. You're still going to get once in a blue moon, those people that do that, but you're going to have far, far better conversations going this route. Another thing maybe I can put together, I don't know if maybe you guys could throw in the chat. I don't know if it would be helpful if I were to put together like, hey, here's, everything we kind of went over today. Here's my cold calling script, and gave it to you guys. If that'd be helpful, throw it in the chat, let me know. And, maybe I could put that together. If not, that's cool too. Oh, David Allen. Yes, please. Oh, I saw your message. I didn't have time to write back to you before I started this morning. So moving on. Okay, Nate, so you're telling me don't make an offer on the first call. So then how, like, where do we go from here? The person said, we know, yeah, we're talking to John. He said, yeah, this is his property. And we just said, hey, John, I know this call's kind of a little out of the blue, but I was actually reaching out to see if you'd consider an offer on it. Right. So there's a few responses, either, no, like a hard no, right? Like hard no, like, nope, not looking to sell, not interested. Dude, we just bought it like last year, whatever the case may be, right? There's the hard no response. And then guys, again, genuine, be kind, playful tone. John, no problem. I know I'm calling you completely out of the blue. I know it was a bit of a long shot. Totally understand. Well, hey, John, if for whatever reason circumstances ever change, or even if you're looking to sell to someone else and I could be of help, please feel free to reach out anytime. Right? Then they go, okay, thanks, bye. On to the next lead. If they say, now a lot of times, 80% of the time you're going to get the response, well, what's your offer? Right? Well, maybe for the right price, 80% of your leads, right? Especially for cold calling, they're going to say, well, maybe for the right price, or, well, what's your offer? It doesn't mean it's not a motivated seller. It just means they still have their guard up. They might not be a motivated seller, but this is a natural response. This is the natural human response, the natural defense mechanism that they put up, because nobody wants to be sold, right? And we have to kind of see through that and be willing to kind of stick through the conversation so that we can really find out, hey, are they motivated? Or because there's people that will say for the right price, and they'll give you a number that's crazy hot, and they will drastically drop their number, right? After you have a real conversation with them and figure out their motivation, what they need, what they're looking for, and you connect with them. Guys, it's crazy how much of a shift there can be. So what does that look like? Person then says, well, maybe for the right price, or, well, what's your offer? Well, John, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about the property just yet. I just kind of looking at it here. I know it's showing up as it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? Right. He's like, yeah, it's 3-bed, 2-bath, about 1,500 square feet. Well, John, typically, what the next steps would look like is, I'd look to ask a little bit more about the property, and figure out kind of exactly what we'd be able to pay for it, and, what's kind of the best fit for you. My guess is, typically it takes about 5-10 minutes. But my guess is that you probably don't have the time for that right now. We're pushing them towards a no. It's so much easier for them to respond with no than it is a yes, right? So, but you probably don't have the time for that right now. No. Now's good. We can chat about it. Okay, great. And then we can step forward with that, right? Or if he's like, yeah, no, you caught me in the middle of something. Because what you don't want to do is, we talk about the importance of setting expectations, right? Setting the stage, right? So with cold calling, there's the initial beginning of like, hey, is this John? Is this your property? Cool. Let's chat. Right. But then we want to set the stage, because now we're leaving sort of the introduction of like the cold call to, okay, now this is a lead. This is someone who's interested in hearing about an offer or possibly selling the property. Now we're about to have the real conversation with them. So we want to set that expectation, because if you start going into the conversation, like, you don't want to get 10 minutes into it and you're, talking about the condition of the house and the motivation. And then he's like, look, I don't have time for this right now. I'm at work. I got to go. People are calling me. It's crazy. Look, give me a call another time. Click. Right. So what we want to do is we want to set that expectation. Hey, John. Typically next steps, I'd take just about 5-10 minutes, real simple stuff. Ask you a little bit about the property, roof, furnace, foundation, things like that. Real simple stuff. But my guess is you probably don't have time for that right now. If he says, oh yeah, no, I don't have time right now. Got it. No, that totally understand. Well, let me tell you what. When are you available later today? Here's the other important part. Whenever you guys set a follow up, whether it's cold call lead, a lead that's already generated, anyone, pick a specific time. Don't be like, if he says, yeah, give me a call later this afternoon. Okay, got it. If I give you a call back at, say, 3 this afternoon, that works for you? 3 p.m. Yeah, I can do 3. Got it. Okay, so 3 p.m. I'll give you a call. Yeah, sounds good. All right, thanks, John. I'll talk to you at 3. I'll say it like 3 or 4 times, because I want to ingrain to him of, I am going to call you at 3 o'clock specifically, and then we're gonna recontinue this conversation. What happens is when you just do the, yeah, give me a call back in the afternoon. Okay, great. I'll reach out to you then. The chances of you actually connecting with them, it's like almost 0. Right. And then you're playing a telephone tag, and then it's basically like a lost lead at that point. So we specifically want to set follow-up times. The other thing we're doing is we're asking for permission. So why is that so important? And when we get into like more of the closing conversation, right, to where we're digging into motivation, talking about the property condition. There's a number of points where we ask for permission, right? Hey, John, is it okay if I kind of, run through some questions, about the condition of the property, real simple stuff, age of the roof, furnace, things like that. When we ask for permission, it gives them the feeling that they're in control of the conversation. And one of the whole dynamics, from the psychology standpoint of what we're working with when we're talking to a seller on the phone is, and this is kind of the whole story from the beginning to the end, is from the very beginning when we get on the phone with them, they have their guard up, there's all this resistance towards us. And what we do is, we make them feel in control. We make them like it, and we're slowly bringing down that guard, and we're making them feel comfortable, right? This is not a, hey, John, we could, for a cash offer on a property like this, we could maybe do 100,000, right? Which is half of like 50% of this estimate. You don't want to do that in the beginning, right? You do not want to do that. They still have all this resistance, right? Even if they give you a high number in the beginning, we don't tell them off or like, no, that's a crazy number. Or like, yeah, no way I could do that. Because their resistance, their guard is still up at that point in time. So we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to feel like they are in control of the conversation, so that when they get comfortable, right, and their guard comes down, then we can really connect with them and have, a real conversation about what's actually happening, right? What are they actually looking for? And that's what we're trying to get to. And that's why, guys, these calls, when you're talking to sellers, like, it should not, it shouldn't feel like, you're pressuring them or you're kind of doing these uncomfortable things to sort of push them in a certain way or lowballing them. It should never feel like that. If it feels like that, you're doing it wrong, right? And it's okay. I've been there, right? I've been there. I started out that way too. I thought that was the way it was supposed to be done. It's not. There's a far better way. The books that, if any of you guys are readers and you're like, hey, Nate, like, how can I learn more about this in my own time? You can't teach a kid to ride a bike in a seminar. That book's amazing. That basically is all about kind of what's called the Sandler sales system, but the science behind that is pretty much what we're talking about here, more or less. This is just specific to real estate and specifically the conversations that we're having as wholesalers. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And then the third, I'd probably say the most important one, is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Dr. I believe it's Robert Cialdini. Especially the book Influence, because what we're really talking about here is it's really just human psychology, right? And the more you kind of get a better understanding for it, the more you're like, oh, I get it now. Like, this makes sense. And when you understand the principles of it, you don't need that word by word script, because you understand, oh yeah, this is what's going on. This is how I can approach it. And you can kind of come up with your own answers on the spot. So cold calling, we talked about the intro, right? Specifically, like, how do we pick up the phone? When they pick up the phone, how do we immediately word by word respond to them in what tonality? We talked about how do we get past those first 5 seconds before they hang up on us. Now the other thing real quick on that intro, when you're like, hey, John, sometimes guys, in the beginning, you gotta be quick and you have to be a bit assertive, right? And what I mean by that is when you call and say, hey, John, there's going to be times where they're like, oh no, this isn't John. Right. And you can feel like they're about to hang up the phone immediately, and you'd be like, no. And they're like, oh, you got the wrong number. And they're about to hang up. You'd be like, no. I'm reaching about, you own the property on 123 Main Street, right? And what that does is that hooks them for 1 second, and you're just looking to confirm, do they actually own the property or not? Right? If they do own the property, you just bought yourself another 5 seconds. So like, okay, yeah, what is this about? Right? And then great, we continue on. If they're like, no, wrong number. No, I don't own that property at all. Like, totally wrong number. Got it. Thanks. Mark it as a wrong number. We move on. But right? You know for sure. That's really what we're looking to do. We're looking to identify, is this a lead or is this 100% definite no of a lead, or 100%, wrong person, wrong number. So moving on. So we talked about how to segue into the kind of the closing conversation, right? Where we go into property condition, motivation, all that stuff. That is kind of for like part 2 of the call. Part 1, the cold call. It's really just we're trying to be super specific with how we just break through that initial awkwardness with them. Now, sometimes people will, they'll be kind of all over the place. Sometimes they'll throw some objections at you right off the bat. Some common objections I'm actually curious if anyone here cold calls or talks to guys, put in the chat or you can unmute yourself. What are some common objections that you guys either get or deal with when cold calling or talking to a new seller lead? Let me know and we can go over them. And how do we handle them? I know for me, the one I hated the most was hey, where'd you even get this number? How'd you get this number? Right? I don't know. You guys ever heard that one before? Right? And you feel this kind of awkward, like, what do I say? The one thing is, so this is kind of a recurring theme I keep saying here, is this isn't like just, we're not putting on a front and trying to be like a salesman when we're talking to them. Guys, it's okay to be be yourself, be genuine, and it's okay to sound unsure. In fact, if you noticed right in the beginning, I'm like, man, I might even have the wrong number, but I was actually reaching about, I was looking for the owners of 123 Main Street. When you have that kind of those are very human elements, right? And people can relate to that, and they look at you as a human being and not like a telemarketer. So you can respond the same way. You don't need to lie. You don't need to make up an answer. Be genuine to whatever your situation is. So when someone, just give me your price. Yeah, that's a good one. We'll go over that one. When someone says, hey, how'd you even get my number? Where'd you get my number from? There's a couple ways. So some people, when you're talking to them, they like to position themselves as, hey, I work for, this company. If you're positioning yourself as, hey, I work for this company. I'm calling on behalf of, I-84 home buyers. The way I say is, hey, where'd you get my number? John, if I'm being completely honest, I'm really not sure. Our marketing department handles most of all that stuff. And they use these service providers that, they're public to everyone. And the way it kind of works is the service providers look at, hey, here's people that may be likely to sell. And then they connect it with the public tax records. And then they'll find a list of, here's the numbers that are most, likely to be associated with the property. Honestly, 80% of the time they're wrong, but every once in a while, we get lucky and it's the right person. And I say right like that, right? And a lot of times it's just right. And then guys, pause, right? We talked about the pause, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to be a victim of that same tactic, right? So when you deliver that, stop there, because the more this is another thing with psychology, when you use more words to explain it, it sounds less and less believable, and the person on the other end of the phone is like, okay, this is sketchy. When you just keep it short and sweet and then stop and pause, you're putting them in the position where it's like, hey, what, do you have a follow-up question or can we move on? So I'll say that, I'll pause. And then, guys, 99% of the time, they're like, okay, got it. Well, yeah, we're not really looking to sell the house, right? Or they'll move on to the next part of the conversation. If you say, well, hey, Nate, I don't I don't position myself as like I'm this caller, I say, hey, it's me calling, and I'm interested in your house. Like, how do I word it then? So same thing. You're just kind of making yourself, the person. Seller goes, hey, how did how'd you even get this number? Yeah, John, that's a really good question. So I use a software. It's called Batch Leads. It's kind of meant for people that do real estate investing, and what they do is, like, you can kind of put in, hey, I'm looking to buy properties in this specific area, and they'll give you a list of, oh, here's a list of people that we think might be likely to sell their house for whatever reason. And then they're able to kind of give you a whole list of numbers, from public records and whatnot that might be associated to the property. I don't even know how they really get them. Most of the time, like 80 to 90% of the time, they're wrong, but sometimes, we get lucky. Pause. And that's just how I handle it. And right, we're not lying, we're not making stuff up. Like, just be genuine, right? And you'll find people, like, they appreciate that, right? It's not about sounding like we have everything together and like this is how we get the numbers, or like, oh, what guys, just be genuine. Honestly, when you make mistakes, it it actually helps you connect with them more, right? Or when you kind of have that surety, it makes them actually feel a little bit more comfortable. So just give me your price. Jennifer, that's a ridiculous low price. So, and then we got another one. Tenants live in the property, but what's this other one? How do you get around a seller saying tenants live in the property, but they don't want them to know they're selling, and I can't actually view the property? Okay, that's good. So first, let's start with just give me a price, right? So you cold call, you get through. So there's two things. When I cold call, I said there's two ways you can frame it. You can frame it either, hey, I was reaching out to see if you would consider an offer on your property. Or, hey, I was reaching out to see if you were considering selling your property. When you say to see if you would consider an offer on your property, that opens you up to, oh, well, what's your offer? Well, hey, you called me and said you wanted to give me an offer. What's your offer? Right? If we say, hey, are you considering selling your property? It switches it. If they say, yeah, what's your offer? Oh, got it. Well, since they are the ones saying that they are considering selling their property. So it kind of, the way you're positioned is more advantageous. And it's like, hey, I wasn't calling to give you an offer. I didn't say I'd give you an offer right this second. I was actually reaching out to see if you're considering selling it. Don't word it like that. But that's kind of how it's positioned. So let's assume we're calling and we're saying, well, I need to take a sip of tea. Okay, throat's getting dry. Doing a lot of talking. So we call and we say, hey, John, I know I was kind of calling you totally out of the blue here, but I was actually reaching out to see if you'd consider an offer on your property there. Okay, yeah. What's your offer? Yeah, just give me an offer. Well, John, I'll be honest. I only know. I mean, maybe the beds and baths. I really don't know much about, the condition of the property or anything like that. I mean, was it something you were seriously thinking about selling, or not really? Guys, just ask them if they're serious about selling. Because when you ask that, it puts them in the position of, hey, if you just want an offer, then you're not serious about selling your property. If you're serious about selling your property, then obviously we're going to need to have a bit more of a conversation. So let's go over the different responses. Hey, just give me an offer. Yeah, John, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know a ton about the property just yet. If we could chat a little bit about the condition of the property, and if I could learn a little bit more about it, I can definitely figure out what exactly I can pay for you. But I mean, before we even get into all of that, I mean, is this even something that you're seriously thinking of selling, or my guess is not really. Again, we're going for no, right? And so we give them the opportunity to just, like, Let us know right now. Don't waste our time. And if he's like, well, you called me and what's your offer? Well, John, like I said, I need to learn a little bit more about the property. I mean, let me ask, have you considered listing it with an agent and maybe kind of just going that route? What we're doing is we keep redirecting, right? And eventually one or two things are going to happen. They're either going to give you an actual answer of, yes, I am looking to sell, or, well, I've thought about listing it with an agent. Or, guys, if they're just like really agitated and they're like, oh, just give me an offer. Yeah, just give me, hey, you called me. What's your offer? What's your price? And if you keep trying to redirect and keep, progress the conversation and they're not having it, that's okay. It just means that person's not a motivated seller, right? And we're going to get a lot of those people, especially when cold calling, right? And what that means is, no need to kind of get bent out of shape about it or take person like that's okay. Just, hey, move on to the next conversation. And what that could look like is, yeah, just give me an offer. Just what's your price? What's your offer? You called me. You said you wanted to give me an offer. What's your offer? Yeah, John. Well, what we can do is I can ask you a little bit. I'd need to learn a little bit more about kind of the property condition. Able to in order to really figure out what I could pay. Is it all right if I ask you kind of some questions about that? No, look, you called me. You should have done your research already. What's your offer? Look, John. I mean that as far as research goes, I mean I don't know what the inside of the property looks like, right? Look, if it's my guess is it kind of sounds like it's something you really weren't considering selling, and that's fine. I just want to be respectful of your time. Of course, I'm not looking to waste mine either, right? And then what they'll do is it's one of two ways. They're either, well, what's your offer? Like you called me, no, give me your offer. Like, well, John, let me ask you, have you thought about maybe just kind of listing it with an agent, sort of going that route? If they're not a motivated seller, they're probably going to hang up on you on this point, right? And that's okay, right? That like if they're not motivated, that's the response you want. If they're motivated, they're gonna give you an answer. Well, I was talking with an agent, but you just called me and said you wanted to give me an offer. What's your offer? Got it. Well, John, what I could do is we could take about 10, 15 minutes. We could go over the condition of the property and, I could kind of look at things and figure out, what's the absolute most that I'm able to pay, and go from there. But I'll be honest, John, I'm not sure if I'd be the right buyer for you. Well, what do you mean? Right? And then the conversation continues. And what we're doing is we're really just pushing this person to like, please hang up on me if you're not interested. Right? That's not a bad response. If someone hangs up the phone on you and they're just like, look, this is a waste of my time. Like, I'm not interested. That's naturally going to happen. Like it's going to happen with cold calling. And that's okay. I will say when you approach it this way, it's rare to find someone that goes like 4 steps in and they're still like really aggressive at you. When it's done correctly, right? And you're like, John, I'll be honest, my guess is it's probably not something you're really looking to sell. Right. And when we do the beginning correctly and we start off with the light, the right tonality, the playful tone, and we're having like that real conversation, and then we get to this point, well, make me an offer. Oh, John, I'll be honest, I don't know enough about the property just yet. What I could do is typically, spend a little bit of time, 5-10 minutes, ask you a little bit about the condition. And then we can kind of, if it sounds like something that might be a good fit, we can figure out exactly what we could pay for it. But my guess is it kind of sounds like it really wasn't something you were interested in selling. What you're going to do is a lot of times you're going to get the response of, yeah, honestly, it's really not something I was looking to sell. Right. And it's like, got it. No worries. Totally understand. Well, hey, John, let me tell you what, if you do decide to sell, at any point in time, or even if you're looking to sell it to someone else and, I might be able to help you out in any way, please feel free to reach out anytime. Right. And that's how we end the conversation. Right. So you can put them as a future follow-up and you still ended on a good note. That's how I would handle that. Okay, and that's a really good one, right? Because you get that all the time. Let's see. Let me look back at the chat here. Tamika. All right. So, how do you get around a seller saying tenants live in the property, but they don't want them to know they are selling, and I can't actually view the property? All right. So that's a good one. Very specific. I'm assuming there's a seller lead attached to that question. So, honestly, that's actually really good for you. And the reason being is, yeah, exactly, she says. The reason why that's really good for you is that is a massive barrier. Like they want to sell the property, but clearly there is there is an obstacle there of, hey, we want to be able to sell it without the tenants knowing, and without anyone viewing the property, and without all these things. Pretty much, she just told you, hey, it's impossible for me to even consider selling through a real estate agent, right? The nice thing is you're probably the only person that would be the right fit for this seller. So that's huge. And that's what they just told you in that question. So we can buy property sight unseen. However, you need to price it accordingly. So look, I mean, you can buy as long as there's no title issues and whatnot. Definitely do like a drive by. You want to make sure it's not like a burnt down building. But guys, buy, like if you send a property out to cash buyers, right? Or if you have relationships with cash buyers, this is something so huge that we talk about. This is where it comes in like so key. When you have those relationships with a few buyers in your market, you can just call them up and ask them before you even get under contract. Hey, I'm talking with the seller at this property at this address. I think it'd be a really good fit for you, and I think I could probably get her to a price that could work. But I wanted to run it by you real quick because she's saying, she wants to sell it, but blah 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 with the tenants, and she, can't view it or go on the inside. Is that something that you think you'd be interested in, or willing to buy? And if so, for that kind of condition or for that sort of scenario, what price do you think you would need to be at? Boom, your problem gets solved right there. And your buyer can let you know, this house, this area, okay, it's this old. Yeah, let me drive by it later today and I'll let you know. Right. And they'll say, hey, in order to buy it sight unseen, I'll probably need it at this price. And it's going to be a low price. Like, because it is buying it sight unseen, right? There is an extra discount for that. So, and that's one of the things like you can convey to your seller is, and guys, like again, like being genuine is you're going to hear me say it a million times, right? So like just genuinely express what's going through your mind when you're like, okay, well, John, Mr. Seller, be honest, it's not that we can't buy sight unseen, that's definitely an option. We've done it before. But just to be completely transparent with you, there's usually a big kind of difference in price just because we have no idea what the inside actually looks like. I mean, I know, and guys, you don't even have to say you personally. Use stories from other people, other cash buyers, whatever, and it could be on a video you've watched on YouTube. It could just be like, hey, look, like I know people that I've seen people, they bought property and then the units were totally trashed. The tenants weren't paying. They had to evict them and all these things. And it was like, $70,000 in additional expenses that they didn't know about. Right. Or word it in whatever way you want, but just express to them, hey, John, Mr. Seller, it's not something we're opposed to, but, there's kind of a lot of unknowns that, are a big concern to us. Right. And when you're genuine, with them and expressing that, it's like they can understand. Right. And whether they come down on price or not, they'll at least like they understand where you're coming from. Because they're like, yeah, that makes sense. You're buying it sight unseen and whatnot. School. What if it's a condominium in a building and they cannot ride by and see the specific unit? So if it's a condo, so I actually have a property management company that manages HOA associations um, that I'm actually closing this year. Excited about that. There's a lot of headaches with management. But with condos specifically and HOAs, um, the most important thing is look at the financials. So, because the nice thing is they can drive by and yeah, it really doesn't do a whole lot for them to drive by and look at the outside of the unit because the person only owns from the walls in, right? And so the anyone that's not familiar with condos or HOA associations, basically the whole outside of the property, that is the responsibility of the association. So if there's any damage or anything on the outside, it wouldn't be the owner that pays for it, it's the association, the HOA that pays for it. Um, so the most important thing is going to be okay, well, what do the financials look like? Because you can get a general, okay, if it's trashed on the inside, if it's renting for about 3,600 a month. So there's a couple things, I don't know what area you're in, what state, what market, but just take it 3,600 a month for a condo. That is, well, I guess if you're in California, that's probably a discount. But if that's like above the median rent, if it's like, yeah, that's definitely a bit more expensive in this area, you're probably dealing with, a higher quality tenant. So that's one good thing to keep in mind. The other thing is, there's only the walls in that you're responsible for. So they can only really destroy the walls in. So you don't have to worry about them like destroying electrical and plumbing and all this stuff. That would be the association's responsibility. Um, so it actually takes away a lot of those concerns, and buying it sight unseen actually is a lot easier. Then you can just kind of judge it on the numbers. Is the tenant paying? Are they current? But most importantly, what does the association's financials look like? Meaning, how much do they have in reserves in their budget? Because what you don't want to do with a condo, like personally, I have too much experience with managing condos that I would never want to buy one as an investment property for a rental, is because you don't want to buy it and then like, oh, there's a roof assessment and we need everybody to pay 20 grand next month. That's happened at one of my properties, right? Luckily, we were able to go get a loan for them so that they only had to pay 135 a month instead of it was actually 10 grand, not 20. Instead of paying 10 grand like 30 days from now. But literally, if it was any other company but ours, but mine, they would have had to pay the 10 grand up front. And as an investor, like that could sink you, right? Like that kind of expense right off the bat. The other thing keep in mind is how many properties in that complex are owner owned or investor owned. And the reason being is because banks don't like to lend on condos if there's a lot of units. I think it's like more than 30% are owned by investors. And because they can control too much of the board, and I'm kind of getting way too specific on HOAs, but just some things to look at. But dealing with the tenant, it's yeah, for a condo, uh, being able to buy a sight unseen is much more. There's a much higher likelihood that that's a good fit for you. All right, bringing it back, cold calling, talking to sellers, that initial conversation. Is there anything, any other questions, any other comments, concerns that I can go over for you guys? Are there any other specific scenarios? Hey, when I cold call and talk to a seller, this is an issue I'm dealing with, or like, how do you get around, this objection or that? If you guys have any, you can either unmute, you can type it in the chat. Um, yeah, good to see you. Hey, Gene. Is it Gene or Jeannie? Jeannie, good to see Jeannie. And I heard you, I think last night on the call, you're a New Yorker. I'm from upstate New York. So are you like New Yorker, like in the city? Okay. Have you ever been up to like the Catskills? So I was from Saugerties. If you, yeah, it probably would have been 5 minutes from where I used to live. I'm in Danbury now. Okay. All right. So, anyways, what can I help you with, Jeannie? Yeah, that's really good. Um, so I used to get that a lot. Because my previous partner that I was working with, our market was all of West Michigan, and I was living in upstate New York and then Danbury, Connecticut. I'd never even been to Michigan. Right. So I would get that question a lot, like, "Hey, where are you even from?" Like, you don't sound like me. Um, and I'd just be genuine, right? Like, and this keeps coming back to when you're genuine and you just give like a real honest answer for question, like really direct questions like that are really specific. Like just the true answer is the best one. So for you, virtual wholesaling, do you have a specific virtual market, or are you like, is it nationwide virtual? Mhm. Yes. Right, right. Yeah. So, really good question. So, the way I used to leverage it, because we didn't have a physical office, also, my partner was local in West Michigan, but we didn't have like an office or a physical address or anything like that. And everything that we were contracting and closing, I was doing it 100% virtual. So, it's not like they would ever meet with someone, that would walk the property and then make them an offer. So this was something that I dealt with a lot. And so one thing you can do is um, so there's kind of be genuine about the situation and then leverage other people and their credentials. And what I mean by that is, so we had a specific title company that we used. And what I'd do is I'd say, I'd be like, yeah, honestly, like I actually live, we buy kind of properties all in West Michigan. I actually live in, I don't know if you've ever been to Connecticut. I actually live in Danbury. Um, and they might be like, "Oh, okay, it's a bit strange. Like, is there an office or someone that we could like stop by and see? Just make sure you guys are like an actual thing." And we're like, honestly, since COVID, we kind of got rid of, we don't really do offices and stuff anymore. You could go check out our title company that we use for everything. We run everything through Owner's Title. They're located right in Grand Rapids. More than happy to you can go and chat with them. And so that's kind of what I would do. And because what it is they're just giving us smoke. And if you and your position is, so we actually had a relationship with that title company. And I would tell people, I was like, yeah, like they know us. We do everything that we purchase. We go through them. Like, feel free to give them a call. They'll totally know who we are. But say you don't have a title company that have that kind of established relationship with, just you got to kind of find a local title company anyways. Just pick one, right? And you can call them and like because you have to look for a title company for yourself anyways. So call, find one that works with investors. They do wholesale deals, and and then you can just use them. Be like, oh hey, the title company that I use is right on blah 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 Main Street. And the other thing is like be genuine. Be like, well, where are you located? Be like, honest, actually, I live in New York. You know, and the reason why I chose here is I don't know if you've ever been to New York, but like a 400 square foot condo is going to be like, $1.2 million dollars, and I don't have that kind of money. So and I don't have all the money in the world, and it is extremely just ruthless and competitive in New York City. Like 100% true, right? It'd be like, so I actually chose a different market. So I do kind of what's called, long distance real estate investing, and I work with a lot of local people. And here's the title company that I use, but it just makes so much more sense for me to invest. And I really like this area. I like this market, and so that's why I chose here, right? And then pause, right? The pause is so huge. Don't like whatever you do, just don't make that like a 20 to 30 minute explanation. Like make short, sweet, and then stop. The more words we use, the less likely they are to actually believe it. The more words we use, the more they'll actually doubt it and feel kind of sketchy about it. um but yeah, you can be yeah. So no, that's a great point you bring up, because these are things that everyone deals with, right? Um, I for my number one thing is no matter what I do, when I'm chatting with the seller or how I position myself, for me personally, I want to make sure I'm being honest in everything that I do. And the one from a tactical standpoint, your tonality and the way you express, like when you are being honest, and what like it flows naturally, right? And it's whether it's even if it's like oh, that's kind of a weird answer, but it's the true one. They're gonna believe that or be okay with it way more likely than if we lie to them, and then because that comes through like "Arr." So yeah. And I yeah, it's unfortunate that some people do teach those kind of methods. I definitely do not. And the reason being, like, there's actually some massive advantages to not being the big, like, it's everything can have its advantages. It's all how you, and I kind of talk about this a lot, and when we go in depth, it's really just how you position it. So for example, when I go to make an offer, or when I'm talking to seller, one of the things, if they'll bring up like some crazy price, like, oh yeah, I'll sell it for $1 million, right? And let's say it's worth like 200,000 or whatever the case may be. Or like, oh, I would sell it, but I mean, I just bought it. It'd have to be for the right price or something crazy, right? Like I'll joke and I'll be like, hey, John, Mr. Seller, look, I'll be, I wish I had a big old bag of cash that I could throw your way, but unfortunately, I'm not some massive hedge fund with unlimited money and resources. So I probably wouldn't be the right buyer for you. Blah 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 blah. It's not about the words. It's just how I'm positioning myself. Of, hey, John, Mr. Seller, so before I kind of make an offer, look, I'll be totally honest. We are not like one of these massive hedge funds with unlimited resources. We're a small private company, or like it's just this is a private company. It's like I'm the primary person, and it's just I work with a group of people, and it's not like this huge thing. So when we make an offer, you know that offer, it's only able to be good for 24 hours, and the reason being is because I talk to a lot of people, I look at a lot of different houses, and I don't have the time, the money, and the resources to be able to manage all of them. So if this isn't something you're ready for, that's totally okay. Just let me know. But if this is something you're ready to give a definite yes or no answer on, great. I can, take a look at it and figure out, what exactly the most is I'd be able to pay for it. Right. And so what I'm doing is you'll find, and it depends on the markets you're in too. You said, I'm sorry, what market did you say you were in? Indiana. So, especially like Midwest markets, like when I was in Michigan, people connect, like they would drastically prefer to do business with like just, oh, this is somebody I know. It's not some big company. Yeah, the time where that really matters is if you're buying like big commercial deals, or if you're working with like commercial brokers. In my experience, that's when like they start to care of like, hey, well, like are you actually like this big company, or what does this look like? When we're talking directly to sellers, and we're doing houses here, there, on time, doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is just, yeah, do position it in a way to where, and like I said, there's advantages to explaining it both ways. Just, play into your strengths, and you see how not only did I also made the hedge fund, those big companies, you know, you can also kind of throw stones that way. Like, look, I'm not one of these big hedge fund companies that just has unlimited resources, and is just looking to kind of buy everything up, and like doesn't care about the people or anything like that. Look, I'm just one person. If I buy and work on a property, it's typically one at a time, and you have my complete undivided attention. So it's not like you're going to be talking to 50 different people and all this stuff and yada 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 going on in the background. It's just me, working with you, and we're handling this whole thing together. Right. So you can word it however you want, but those are your advantages. And the only thing I recommend is just be honest in whichever one. Yeah. So, um, really good. The reason, yeah, yeah. One of the reasons why I'm laughing is because we could go like so deep on this topic. Um, so the one kind of thing I'll throw out there that isn't helpful to you right now is, and then I'll give you kind of, hey, here's something you could use right now. So ideally, kind of the way my process goes, and the way I teach is, when we making an offer should be like a proposal. Like like 99% of the time we should know what the answer is going to be, or like almost to the pen, like we should know what they're going to say. Um, Now and all of that's kind of handled earlier in the conversation before we even get to the offer, right? And we really there's a number of different ways to where we can find out, okay, like what exactly are they looking for, and are we even close to that or not? Um, that's another conversation for another time. What you can do right now is, so it sounds like you've been like, hey, let me crunch the numbers, and then I'll call you back and go through an offer. Yeah, and that's, yeah, and 100%, we're on the same page. The way you can do it, because it's like, okay, well, how do I let them know without like offending them, and like ruining this relationship? So the way you can do it is the way I go about it. So there's this thing called okay, not okay, and going more no, not okay. So what does that mean? If I'm going to tell somebody something that I know they're going to be upset about, right? If I know they're going to be upset, I'm gonna like pretend like I'm super upset, like they're gonna be super, super upset, and like I feel horrible. Um, and what that could look like is, hey John, Mr. Seller, hey, yeah, it's Jeannie. Look, I was looking at the property. Look, the last thing I want to do is I don't want to insult you with a low offer. I know what you guys want to get for the property, and I totally understand. Um, Look, I'll be honest. I wasn't. I wasn't able to get close to it, and I feel horrible. And I don't want to lead you guys on. And I I mean, I'm scared to even tell you what the number is. Because I feel like you'd hang up on me. Um, yes, I honestly, I'm not even not even sure what I should do. But yeah, I'm really really sorry. So that's one way you can do it, right? And then they'll be like, oh look, hey, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, just tell me what the price is. So can I give you a simpler version? Yeah. So I'll give you a simpler version. You can do the kind, the one where I went like really not okay. There's like a lot of motion. I'll give you a simpler version, and then I'll this is the exact, like I say it exactly like this every single time when I leave a conversation. Where like, hey, this is not a lead for right now. Maybe a future follow up, but I don't want to ruin the relationship. So here's what it could sound like. So you call them up and be like, hey, John the seller. So I took a look at the property. I did all the numbers on my side. Look, I'll be honest. I know you want 300,000 for it. I get it. Totally understand. And look, I think if you were to list it or whatnot, yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to get that. I'll be honest. I'm not sure I would be the right buyer for you. Just when I looked at everything on my end and ran all the numbers, for me to make a cash offer, I don't think I'd be able to get to a number that would be a good fit for you. Pause. I'm like, well, what's a number? Then you'd be like, look, like I said, it's not where you want it to be at. For a cash offer to close in 30 days. And again, there's no realtor fees, no commissions, nothing like that. Um, but the most I'd be able to pay is $197,419. Right. And then they're gonna be like, oh my God, yeah, no, no, not a chance. And then again, you can follow up like, look, like I said, totally understand. I know it's not close. That's just, unfortunately, that's what I'd be able to do. I know it's not a good fit for you guys, but I'll tell you what, John. Hey, if for whatever reason, if circumstances were to ever change, or look, even if you're looking to sell the property to someone else, or whatever the case may be, if I could be of help to you in any ways, please feel free to hang on to my number, reach out anytime, happy to help. And you'll feel a shift in their tonality like almost every single time. They're like, oh, like, wow, I really appreciate that, thanks. And then that's how you end the conversation, and then you can follow up with them 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and you left on really good terms, because what you're doing is you're offering goodwill, like without asking for anything in return. Hey, even if you're looking to sell it to someone else, if I could be of help, right? Because what you're doing is you're giving an offer that goes against everything like that we would selfishly want. And so they read that as like, wow, that's like that person just earned like some goodwill with me. And like that's a genuinely nice thing for someone to say and do, to kind of um, selflessly be able to offer that. And every conversation ends great. I have yeah, like there's no way you can go wrong when you say it like that. And um when I deliver when I deliver the yeah, yeah. So when I deliver, now the one time where like I'd say the exception to that is if it's a seven figure or more property, like I won't go down to like the dollar. That's just like a bit much. But if it's in a couple hundred thousand, hundreds of thousands, um, when I'm giving, hey, here is like the offer, yes. And the reason being is what we do is when I end it on an odd number every time, right? So 417, 419, 415, 413. It's like a psychology thing. It just registers more. The other thing is when you give that specific number, it like what they when they look at it, it communicates to them of like, oh wow, like there is no negotiating. Well, can you do, it's just okay, like this really is the price. But there's a lot of other things that happen before that to where we talk about price and we talk about numbers, but we're not giving an exact figure. To where I'll use what's called like brackets or ranges to where I'll be like, okay, I'll be honest for a property like this and in a condition it's in, I'll be honest, I'd probably be somewheres, between somewhere's in like the 200, 250 range maybe. I don't know, do you feel like it's kind of that's in the ballpark for you or not? There's a whole lot of things that as far as in the middle part of our conversation with the seller, there's a lot of different stuff that we do with talking about the numbers there's like five different ways I ask for their asking price. There's ways that I can ask them to come down on their price without really giving my offer. Um, Again, whole nother conversation. Maybe that's a really good topic for next call though. How to kind of go about chatting about our offer and delivering it. So I appreciate that idea. But I we went a little bit over today, which is fun. I hope I was able to be no, I'm happy to hopefully be of some help and hopefully give you kind of some good feedback that you can use when given those offers today. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is oh, what's that? Oh man. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love my New York. It's so funny. We're it's especially when we're calling other markets, we tend to be so much more assertive and it catches people off guard. We're so direct, we're so assertive. It's hilarious. Right. Yeah, we all have. No, that's a funny story. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do too. All right, guys. Well, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hopping on. Jeannie, Tamika, thanks for hopping on, and everybody else. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. There's no calls next week. So it'll be the following week. And yeah, maybe we'll talk about offers and how do we negotiate price and get them to come down. I think that'd be a really good topic. But thanks for hopping in here, guys. Best of luck to you. Keep at it. And if you need anything, let me know. All right. Bye, guys.